It is a story that almost defies belief. Imagine a country so vast it covered 1/6 of the Earth's land. A nation that stretched across 11 time zones, from the frozen tundra of the Arctic to the sun-scorched deserts of Central Asia. This was the Soviet Union. For nearly 70 years it stood as a titan on the world stage, a colossal power built on a revolutionary idea. Its red flag, with its iconic hammer and sickle, was a symbol recognized in every corner of the globe. This was a nation that commanded immense respect and equally immense fear. A giant whose every move was watched by the rest of humanity with bated breath. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, was more than just a country. It was an experiment in creating a new kind of human society. It promised to build a world without poverty, without exploitation, a workers' paradise where all were equal. This powerful dream captured the imagination of millions, inspiring revolutions and political movements far beyond its borders. The Soviet Union presented itself as the future, a bold alternative to the capitalist West. It was a vision that promised to reshape the very foundations of civilization, offering hope to the downtrodden and a different path for mankind to follow. Its influence shaped the lives of countless people, for better and for worse. But then, in what seemed like the blink of an eye in historical terms, it was gone. The giant stumbled, faltered, and then collapsed. In 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. The red flag was lowered from the Kremlin for the last time, replaced by the tricolour of a newly independent Russia. The world watched, stunned, as this seemingly permanent fixture of the global landscape disintegrated. Nations that had been bound together under one rule for decades went their separate ways. A superpower that had defined an entire era of history simply vanished from the map, leaving a void that continues to shape our world today. How could such a mighty entity crumble so quickly? What forces, both internal and external, led to its demise? This is not just a story of politics and economics, it is a human story, a tale of vast ambition, incredible sacrifice, profound suffering, and the unquenchable desire for freedom. To understand the collapse of the Soviet Union is to understand the 20th century itself. It is a story filled with lessons that remain deeply relevant in our time. Join us as we journey back to explore the rise and fall of this immense and complex power, to uncover the untold story of how the Soviet Union collapsed. The influence of the Soviet Union extended far beyond its physical borders. For much of the 20th century, its presence cast a long shadow over global affairs, shaping the destiny of nations on every continent. It was one of two superpowers, locked in a titanic struggle for ideological and military supremacy with the United States. This rivalry, known as the Cold War, was not fought with direct open conflict between the two giants. Instead, it was a war of spies, of propaganda, of technological competition, and of proxy wars fought in smaller countries across the world. From Vietnam to Afghanistan, from Cuba to Angola, the world became a chessboard for these two great powers. The Soviet model of a single-party state and a centrally planned economy was exported around the globe. Countries in Eastern Europe, liberated from Nazi Germany by the Red Army, found themselves absorbed into a Soviet sphere of influence. Nations like Poland, Hungary and Czechoslovakia became satellite states, their governments and economies controlled from Moscow. Further afield, leaders in newly independent nations in Asia, Africa and Latin America looked to the Soviet Union for inspiration and support. They saw it as a powerful ally against Western colonialism and a potential blueprint for rapid industrial development, a way to modernize their societies outside of the capitalist system. This global reach was not just political, it was also cultural and scientific. The Soviet Union made extraordinary contributions to human knowledge and art. It was the first nation to send a satellite, Sputnik, into orbit, sparking the space race and pushing humanity to reach for the stars. It was the first to put a human, Yuri Gagarin, into space, a moment of immense national pride and a stunning technological achievement. Soviet artists, writers and composers, despite often working under the heavy hand of state censorship, produced works of incredible power and beauty. The Bolshoi Ballet and the music of Shostakovich were celebrated worldwide as pinnacles of human creativity. Yet this global influence came at a great cost. The ideological struggle divided the world into two hostile camps, creating a climate of fear and suspicion that lasted for decades. The constant threat of nuclear war hung over humanity like a sword of Damocles, as both superpowers built up arsenals capable of destroying the world many times over. The Soviet Union's support for revolutionary movements often fueled brutal civil wars and propped up oppressive regimes. Its shadow, while offering a promise of progress to some, brought darkness and a loss of freedom to many others who lived under its sway. The story of its collapse is therefore not just the story of one nation, but of the entire world it helped to shape. In 1946, the former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill gave a speech in which he uttered a now famous phrase. He declared that an iron curtain has descended across the continent. This powerful metaphor perfectly captured the new reality of a post-war world. Europe was split in two. To the west lay the democratic capitalist nations allied with the United States. To the east lay the communist countries dominated by the Soviet Union. This was not a physical wall at first, but a profound political, economic and ideological barrier that seemed impenetrable. It was a division that would define life for generations of Europeans and people across the globe. Life on either side of the Iron Curtain was starkly different. In the West, despite its own problems, there was a greater degree of personal freedom, political choice and economic opportunity. In the East, life was rigidly controlled. The state dictated where you worked, what you could read, and what you were allowed to say. The secret police, like the KGB in the Soviet Union or the Stasi in East Germany, maintained a pervasive network of informants, ensuring that any dissent was quickly and ruthlessly crushed. Travel to the West was almost impossible for ordinary citizens. The Iron Curtain was designed not just to keep Western influence out, but to keep its own people in. The most famous physical manifestation of this division was the Berlin Wall. Built in 1961, this concrete barrier sliced through the heart of the German city, separating families and friends overnight. It became the ultimate symbol of Cold War oppression. The wall was lined with guard towers, barbed wire and minefields. Guards were ordered to shoot anyone who tried to escape. Yet despite the immense danger, many people attempted the desperate journey to freedom. The stories of those who made it and the tragic fates of those who did not became powerful testaments to the human spirit's longing for liberty in a world so starkly divided. For nearly half a century, the Iron Curtain seemed a permanent feature of the world. It was the line in the sand between two opposing ways of life. The struggle between these two systems played out in every arena, from the Olympic Games to the chessboard, from espionage to scientific discovery. The eventual collapse of the Soviet Union meant more than just the end of a country. It meant the fall of the Iron Curtain. It was the moment the division that had scarred the world for so long finally began to heal. Understanding this division is crucial to understanding the immense joy and turmoil that followed when it finally came crashing down. To understand the Soviet Union, we must first look at the world it replaced. For centuries, Russia was ruled by the Tsars, absolute monarchs who held immense power and wealth. Tsarist Russia was a land of staggering contrasts. A small, fabulously rich aristocracy lived in opulent palaces, enjoying a life of luxury and culture. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the population were poor peasants, living in conditions of squalor and ignorance. They toiled on the land, bound by tradition and burdened by poverty. By the early 20th century, this deeply unequal society was a powder keg of social unrest, waiting for a spark to ignite it. That spark came with the First World War. The war was a catastrophe for Russia. The army was poorly equipped and badly led, suffering millions of casualties. At home, the economy collapsed. There were severe shortages of food and fuel, leading to widespread hunger and misery in the cities. The people's faith in the Tsar and his government evaporated. In February 1917, strikes and riots erupted in the capital, Petrograd. The soldiers ordered to fire on the crowds refused and joined the uprising instead. Within days, the centuries-old Tsarist regime had crumbled. A new provisional government was formed, but it was weak and unable to solve the country's deep-seated problems. Into this chaotic void stepped a small, disciplined party of professional revolutionaries. the Bolsheviks. Their leader was a brilliant and ruthless man named Vladimir Lenin. He offered the suffering people a simple, powerful message: peace, land and bread. He promised an immediate end to the war, the redistribution of land to the peasants, and an end to the food shortages. While other parties debated and dithered, the Bolsheviks acted decisively. In October 1917, they seized power in a swift and well-organized coup. The dream of a new world, a communist state run by the workers and peasants, was about to become a reality. The Bolshevik Revolution was one of the most pivotal events in modern history. It was not just a change of government. It was an attempt to completely overturn the existing social order. The new rulers, the commissars, set about building a society based on the ideas of Karl Marx. They nationalized the banks, factories and land. They declared the equality of all people and sought to sweep away the old traditions of religion and class. It was a breathtakingly ambitious project, born from the desperation and hopes of millions. But this dream of a utopian future would soon descend into the nightmare of civil war and terror. The story of the Soviet Union is more than a history lesson. It is a profound examination of ideology, the concentration of power, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit in the face of oppression. Its echoes are all around us, in the geopolitics of the 21st century, and in the ongoing struggle for freedom and self-determination worldwide. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most consequential chapters of modern history.